Hi everyone! In this video, we're going to learn some of the most common cooking verbs in English. This is part 1, so let's get started with some basic and useful words you'll often see in recipes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss part 2. Let's begin. To boil means to cook food in very hot, bubbling water. For example, I like to boil eggs for breakfast. To fry means to cook food in hot oil or fat until it turns brown. For example, she fries the chicken until it is golden brown. To bake means to cook desserts, baked items, and meals by cooking them in the oven. For example, the kitchen smells amazing when I bake cinnamon rolls. To grill means to cook food on a metal surface over fire or heat. For example, he grills vegetables on the barbecue. To roast means to cook meat or vegetables in the oven or over a fire. For example, they roast a turkey for Thanksgiving. To steam means to cook food using hot steam from boiling water. For example, steam the broccoli for 5 minutes. To slice means to cut food into thin, flat pieces. For example, please slice the tomatoes thinly. To chop means to cut food into small pieces. For example, he chopped the onions quickly with a sharp knife. To cut means to use a knife to make pieces from food. For example, he carefully cut the fresh bread so it wouldn't crumble. To peel means to take off the skin from fruits or vegetables. For example, I need to peel 5 potatoes for the mashed potatoes. To mix means to combine different foods together. For example, she mixed the eggs with sugar until smooth. To stir means to move food around with a spoon or another tool to mix it. For example, he slowly stirred his coffee with a spoon. To beat means to mix food quickly to make it smooth or fluffy. For example, beat egg whites with a mixer to make them fluffy. To whisk means to beat food with a special tool to add air. For example, use a bamboo whisk to whisk the matcha powder smoothly. To pour means to make liquid flow from one container to another. For example, he carefully poured the tea without spilling. To add means to put one ingredient into another while cooking. For example, don't forget to add tomato sauce when making pizza. To serve means to give food or drinks to someone after cooking. For example, we served the salad before the main course. To cook means to prepare food using heat. For example, we cook noodles with shrimp and mixed vegetables every Friday. To heat means to make something warm or hot. For example, she heated the dinner using the microwave. To melt means to change something solid into liquid by heating. For example, wait until the butter melts in the pan. To spread means to put something evenly on a surface. For example, I spread peanut butter on my toast for breakfast. To taste means to try food to check how it tastes. For example, she tried sushi for the first time and was surprised by its taste. To season means to add salt, pepper, or spices to food. For example, he seasoned the salad just right. It was delicious. To crack means to break open an egg or something hard. For example, crack an egg into the hot frying pan for a tasty breakfast. To break means to make something into pieces. For example, she broke the chocolate bar to add chunks to the cookie dough. To grate means to rub food against a grater to make small pieces. For example, the recipe says to grate cheese over the hot dish. To knead means to press and fold dough with your hands. For example, knead the dough until it becomes smooth and elastic. To roll means to flatten dough using a rolling pin. For example, use a rolling pin to roll the dough evenly. To measure means to find the right amount of an ingredient using a tool. For example, measure the sugar syrup and pour it over the ice. To weigh means to find out how heavy an ingredient is using a scale. For example, it's important to weigh apples for the recipe. To blend means to mix ingredients until smooth and well combined. For example, blend all the fruits in a blender until there are no lumps. To toast means to make bread brown and crispy by heat. For example, toast the bread slices in the toaster for 2 minutes. To simmer means to cook gently in liquid with small, slow bubbles. For example, heat the water in a pan, then simmer it gently. To stew means to cook food slowly in a small amount of liquid. For example, I stewed the beef in a large pot with the lid on for 2 hours. To marinate means to soak food in a flavored liquid before cooking. For example, marinate the meat overnight for better flavor. To broil means to cook food with strong heat from above. For example, she broiled the salmon until the top was crispy and golden. To microwave means to cook food quickly using microwaves. For example, the soup is ready after cooking in the microwave for 5 minutes. To freeze means to make food very cold to keep it fresh. For example, freeze the vegetables in sealed bags for later use. To defrost means to let frozen food become soft and warm again. For example, defrost the whole chicken completely before roasting it. To drain means to remove liquid from food by letting it flow out. For example, use a colander to drain the hot water from the pasta. To rinse means to wash food quickly with water. For example, she rinses the fruits every morning before breakfast. To grease means to put oil or butter on a pan or food to stop sticking. For example, I always grease the muffin tray with butter to prevent sticking. To coat means to cover food with a thin layer of another ingredient, such as flour, sauce, or oil. For example, make sure to coat every pastry thoroughly with the chocolate glaze. To carve means to cut cooked meat into slices. For example, carve the cooked chicken breast into slices and serve with barbecue sauce. To sear means to quickly brown the surface of food with high heat. For example, sear the steak on a hot pan for 2 minutes on each side. To smoke means to cook or flavor food by exposing it to smoke from burning wood or other materials. For example, they smoke the fish slowly to give it a rich, smoky flavor. To flip means to turn food over to cook the other side. For example, use a spatula to flip the pancake without breaking it. To dice means to cut food into small cubes. For example, dice the meat into small cubes for the tacos. To mince means to chop food into very small pieces. For example, I minced the fresh herbs to sprinkle over the dish. To preheat means to heat the oven or pan before cooking. For example, make sure to preheat the pan on the stove for a few minutes. Don't miss the second part. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. You'll also find lots of interesting content on this channel.